How's it going, everybody? Just wanted to put together a quick video about my Rmax 1000 and why it's currently at the dealership getting a brand new engine put in it when it only has, I believe it was about 65 miles on it. We just had Snowmageddon here in Texas, so video playing in the background will be of me and the old Razor kind of having fun, but I found some limitations to the Skydio 2 and its tracking, so if anybody's interested in seeing a little video about that, let me know and I'll get that uploaded. So I'm a mechanic and I've always been the type to buy older things and fix them up the way I want them and then ride them, drive them, whatever, until they break or typically until I break them and then I'll just fix them. So getting the RMAX in general was a little bit of a change of pace for me. I don't normally buy brand new things, especially not toys, but decided to forego the normal repairs that I'm always having to do and buy something that would be new and reliable. So we bought our RMAX 4 1000 and we took it out on the first ride and we got, I believe it was maybe half a mile down a trail before we went up a tiny little, I wouldn't even call it a grade, it was just kind of a step up, maybe 2 feet. Got got pulled up over this, and as soon as I crested over it, the machine died. And it took me a good 10 minutes before I could finally get it running. It would try to start and it would just choke out and die. Whenever it first died, there was the smell of fresh burnt oil, and this kind of confused me. It wasn't enough of a grade to where I had, you know, gotten oil in somewhere that it shouldn't have been. So I was eventually able to actually get it started, and it didn't want to stay running, but gave it some gas and I revved it out pretty high to it finally decided that it wanted to stay running for me. And on the rest of this trip, we actually didn't have any more issues. Climbed some pretty gnarly stuff. Gave it a little bit of hell, not too much. It's still well within break-in periods, so just trying to, for the most part, be easy on it, break it in the way that it's supposed to, and finished that trip without a hitch. It was actually kind of scared me when it died the first time, but finishing out that day, I was happy with it. It was running good. So after this trip, there were a few more rides just around my property, usually just kind of hauling hay around, pulling my trailer to the back of the house, little things like that. And nothing stressful, so I didn't notice any, performance decrease or anything like that. But I did notice that when it was cold, it would fire right off. Start up, no problem. But as soon as I had ridden it around a little bit and warmed it up, I would have hell getting this thing to start. I would have to give it throttle anytime that I turned it over, and for the first 3 or 4 seconds, I'd have to keep throttle in it, otherwise it would die. And while I thought this was weird, it still wasn't acting strange outside of the hard starts. So I just kind of chalked it up to being inside a break-in period. Maybe this was just a kind of a quirk it was going to have until I got it broke in. But then we decided to go on a ride at a local lake around my dad's house, and this is whenever it really started acting very bad. The power wasn't really there. It was very hard to start, and it actually got to the point towards the end, and we only rode for like 5 miles throughout all these trails. And towards the end, you would get it started, and if you let off the throttle, it would die. It would not idle. So I, at this point, could pretty much tell that it was running on one cylinder, and we limped it back to the house, and from there, the next day, loaded it up, took it to the dealership, and told them, hey, some shit ain't right. So they called me back the next day and told me that it had a stuck valve, or a valve that had stuck open. And I was like, all right, well, let's get it fixed and send me on my way. I wasn't quite sure what would have caused the valve to stick open. I didn't really think too much into it. I figured it was just a defect from the factory. You know, I figured they would put new valve train in it. Didn't find out actually what they did until the next time that I had to bring it back to them. But they got it back to me. I went and picked it up. It started up fine and drove it up on the trailer. Seemed to have no problems. Got it home and did more stuff around the house. Again, hauling hay, stuff like that. And no issues, but nothing stressful on the engine. So I don't really expect it to have any problems. Uh, then we decided to go on a ride. Oh, and during all this, it was still difficult to start when it was warmed up, which again confused me, but I was trying to be optimistic and think, hey, break-in period, maybe it's a quirk. Uh, but then we went to the river, which is the video I posted before this one, and we rode for probably 10 miles before we decided to go to the other side of the river, and we had to cross a bridge to get there. It's about a quarter mile. And by the time we reached the other side of the bridge and I slowed down, it died on its own, and I was already pissed off because I knew. I tried to start it back up. It would not stay running, would not idle. So fired it back up, got it to stay running, hammered down on it to get it back, you know, across the bridge before it died on me again. And loaded it up, finished the ride with a buddy, and next day, day after, loaded it back up and took it back to the dealer. So this time, whenever I got to the dealer, I told him I'm gonna pull it back into your shop. I want y'all to take it apart in front of me. I want to know who I need to be mad at. If it was mechanical on their part, like they forgot to do something, didn't shim something properly, what have you, then they could reconcile it there and could go on about my business. Turns out that they got the valve cover pulled off, pulled the cams off, and it had done the exact same thing in the exact same cylinder. So, what was happening is the valves on these things don't have rocker arms. The cam rides directly on top of a bucket that has a shim in it, and that rides on top of the valve stem and the spring. So the cam comes down, hits this bucket, and shim pushes down the spring, opens the valve, the magic happens. The shim had come out of the bucket, so essentially I believe it was the exhaust valve, was not opening. So I was running on not only one cylinder, but I was running on a second cylinder that could not release compression, essentially. It could, but very, very minimally. Me and the mechanics that worked there were sitting there and kind of going over what would cause this not only once but twice on the exact same cylinder, or on the exact same valve. That's what confused us most. Um, it was a whole new head, so it's not like anything was reused from the old head. New cams and everything. So that was more or less out of the question. Other than that, the only thing that I can personally think of is if it wasn't oiling properly for whatever reason, then I suppose that could cause a valve to stick, which in turn would cause the shim to come loose. That's a possibility, but neither me nor them could come up with anything concrete as to why this would be happening. The next day they got back to me and told me that they had gotten a hold of Yamaha again and that they were going to be sending, and this isn't what they said Yamaha's words were, the newest, most updated version of the motor. And so it's getting a whole new engine swap. And apparently they fixed something, and he said it sounded kind of like they knew something more than what they were letting on, but they were very hush hush about what it was. So I don't know if this is something I've seen one other person online that has had this very similar issue as to what I'm having. Outside of me and this one other person, nobody else have I seen that's having this issue, which is kind of strange to me, especially since like I said, the exact same cylinder, the exact same valve. It it has to be something to do with the motor. If it's a new head, then it's got to be coming from somewhere else. I did get a hold of Yamaha myself, called their hotline, and told them what was going on. This was before they had actually filed all the warranty information to get the new engine, and told them what was happening. And they couldn't do anything official for me yet because the dealership hadn't contacted them yet. But they did promise a the Yamaha extended warranty for free for me. So once I get the machine back, I'll fight with them about how long of an extended warranty they're going to give me. And to wrap all this up, I will say that aside from having the issues that I'm having, uh, I love the machine. It's everything that I wanted it to be as far as a form factor is concerned. Whenever it was for the short period that it was running right on that first ride, it had plenty of power. It was comfortable, and we are a family of three, so being able to have my son in the back and move the other seat forward, put a cooler back there, just that's great for me. I didn't want to be one of the guys in the long razors trying to do 12-point turns to get through the tight trails. That's not appealing to me at all. And it handled all the rocks and crazy climbing stuff that we did uh, really well. So I was impressed with it. Um, just got to get past this engine problem. Hopefully, this new engine will solve everything, and I'll never have another problem out of it. But if I do, I'll have an extended warranty. So I guess that's a bonus. I'm going to be making a lot more videos for the channel. We'll be going to Arkansas here in about 3 weeks, so hopefully I have the machine back for that. I'll have the drone set up and try and get my angles figured out so I can make some pretty badass, unique videos. So y'all keep an eye out for those. Later.